All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Shannon Can. I'm just so glad to have you here. So, we are talking tonight about math talk in the second half of our year. For many of you, you're in the last quarter, the last home stretch of this school year. We're going to define what math talk is. So, remember that math talk is not being used in math expressions as a noun. Math talk is being used as a verb. We are having math talk. So we are talking about math. It's used as an adjective. We are a math talk community, but I'm avoiding using it as a noun because that means it's like an event, right? Like I did a math talk today. So you may have talked about math, but we don't want it to be an event. We want it to be something that's happening throughout our math block. In fact, what we know about current research, especially when you have language learners, is it should be a 70-30 classroom, meaning we're looking for kids to have conversation 70% of the math block. The teacher is telling 30%. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not talking the whole time during the math block. It just means I'm facilitating the whole time. I am explicitly, directly telling or teaching something 30%, which means I want majority of that think time, that work time, that processing, the retaining all the way back on my student's shoulder. I want them to have to own that learning. So as we're looking at the end of the year for the second half, what we start finding is that nothing that we've done keeps working, right? Like you get back from spring break and it feels like every single week you're having to do something new. You're having to pull out some new trick out of the bag, some new incentive, because we all are just starting to be tired of it. It's the same old every single day. We're tired of hearing our Charlie Brown teacher want, 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 want. And that's just what it sounds like to them. Okay, you're stressed because you have Play-State testing coming up. You're trying to finish up concepts. So you just start like telling kids and just starting to shove content down, hoping that they're regurgitating, are able to regurgitate some of it or understanding any of it. So when we include more math conversation, we are going to improve all of those things. The more we say it, the more we retain it. Okay, the more that we're able to defend it, the more we understand it. The more that we're able to have a lot of conversation with using our voice in any capacity in the classroom, the more engaged I'm going to be, the more productive your lesson is going to be. And in long run, the more I'm going to come out having more of an idea of what we just talked about that day. I want you to think about how often you can do a math lesson and how many of your students never had to say a single word the whole math block. It doesn't mean you didn't ask them to, but it also doesn't mean that they did it. So I could be asking students, what do you think? And having raised hands and asking them to do turn and talk. But if they're not doing it, then they can go through the entire math class and never really be held accountable. And you just kind of keep going through because what else are you supposed to do? So when we increase the amount of conversation that students are having at this point in the year, it is going to go so much better for us. And it's going to have a lot of benefits because this is the toughest part of the school year. So why is it good right now? Well, one, you already know your students and you have norms already in place. So oftentimes I get the complaint at the beginning of the year that math talk is hard because kids don't have community. Kids don't know what even like the rules of the classroom, much less like the rules of partner conversation, right? All of that is not the case now. Okay, you've built community. Students understand what the expectations are in the classroom, even though post-spring break you still have to talk about them a lot. Okay, but they know, they feel more comfortable. They know when they can take risks and you can talk about errors, all of those things. That's a major plus for right now. You have built community. So we need to capitalize on the community and remind them of the partner talk norms and structures that we want them to have as they go into these conversations. So if you've been doing conversations and norms and partner talk structures since the beginning of the year, at this point in the year, you may not need some of those really strict norms because students are just good now at having good conversation with each other. If you didn't do that up until now, then you're going to have to start with some pretty strict norms. Or if students have really fallen off the bandwagon, they don't have eye-to-eye contact anymore. They don't turn their bodies and look at each other. They don't speak in complete sentences. They're like leaning on their head, on their desks. They're not being orienting to each other's thinking. It's not respectful, all of those things. And that tells me, oh, we got to re-norm and we're going to re-spice this up so that students are back engaged in the conversation. Okay, so there's two different possibilities you have there, but both of them are worth it because the more students talk, the less you have to. And we know they're just not listening to us right now. So I want you to do a couple things. I want you to look in your teacher's edition. And I want you to take a highlighter and I want you to highlight every place in the lesson you're supposed to teach tomorrow that there is red writing. Okay, that it's in the print is actually said it's like red. Okay, so it's red font. I want you to look for every little icon that says Math Talk. I want you to look for the icons that say Math Talk in action. Okay, those are generally the vignettes where it says like there's kindergartners and you're supposed to be talking about geometry and you're like, what exactly is a 5-year-old supposed to even say about this? And it'll give you a vignette of a sample conversation that kinders are having with each other and or the teacher. That's like my highlight reel. Okay, so I see that. I'm like, okay, so if I ask these types of questions, like that's what I'm hoping to get from them and what I have to train them to be able to say. You're looking in your teacher's guide for the English language support. There's bridging, emerging, expanding, sentence frames for kids that are learning the language. All of those are built into the lesson. And I want you to highlight every single place that you see those things. Then I want you to look for, of the things you've highlighted, what is a closed question versus what is an open question? Okay, if it is a closed question, that means it is something that is a one word, everyone can get an answer. 4 plus 4, 8. Is it a square or is it a triangle? Triangle. Okay, so you could hear different answers, but in general, there is just one. Even though kids may think different things, there is an answer. 4 plus 4 is 8. Okay, so that's a closed question. And as you go down the question prompts that are in your teacher's guide where you've highlighted, because there's red responses, which means that's where a student would be responding, okay? I don't want you to ask the question and then ask for hands. When we do that, it takes away the ownership of learning. Because at this point in the year, you also have students that are totally cool with someone else owning their learning for them. Because remember, community is not an issue anymore. Risk taking shouldn't be an issue anymore. We already have that built. So if you're asking for, what do we think this is, a circle or a triangle, and you're asking for hands and you get the same 2 hands up, it means everyone else is totally cool that either 1, you're just going to tell them ultimately, or 2, that kid's going to tell them. You're going to call on the kid that has their hands up. You could say, come on, guys, raise your hands up. They're not interested. Their engagement's low. They know someone else is already going to do it for them. Why do they have to put forth effort? So when you get to a closed question, I want you to mark it with a C in your teacher's guide. And I want you to remind yourself, C for closed equals choral response. A choral response, meaning I say, so is this a circle or a triangle? Think about it, think time. I'm getting some sort of a signal, thumbs up. I don't want to have kids raise their hand because that's anxiety producing. And then some kids just raise their hand just to raise their hand. Okay, I'm looking for who generally has an idea. When I see that most kids have an idea, I'm just going to say class. I'm going to give them a signal and I want the whole class to say the answer together. I don't hear everybody. Every voice, every day. Class, I'm going to do it again. Now, I'm still not going to probably hear every voice, but I'm going to keep working till I do. I'm going to go over there to Ricardo and I'm going to be like, dude, this is not a choice. You have to. Okay. Well, the more I do it, the more they realize they really can just say what they're thinking. And when it's not right, no one knows. So I hear all the wrong answers right along with all the right answers. And I can hear generally that ratio. Like majority of my kids said the right thing, but I've got a few that said something really random. Now, when you're in a choral response, it's hidden. The pressure's not on you for like raising a hand, because most kids don't raise their hand because if they're not 100% sure, they're not raising their hand because they have learned that we really only honor the right answers. In a choral response, when I hear everything, I'm like, oh, okay, so here's what I heard. I heard a little bit of this and I heard a little bit of that. Let's talk about, why does this one not work? I just turned it into an open question where now there's multiple things we could say to answer that question. So closed question, what do we think it is? A triangle or a square? Turn and talk, or not turn and talk, excuse me, to point in your heart box. Show me some sort of signal you're ready. Class, majority of kids say something, and I hear both triangle and square. I'm like, okay, so I heard some people say that they think that this is a triangle. Friends, would you do a turn and talk right now? And I want you to talk about why this is not a triangle. Okay, now I just told you it's not a triangle, you guys. This is a square. Okay, but I'm saying I need you to defend with your neighbor why. I'm just going to tell you it's not true, but why? Why is this not true? I just turned it into an open question, but notice I didn't call on someone. I said turn and talk. Now, the turn and talk has to be effective, meaning there have to be names. I want peanut butter to tell jelly. There has to be a cue to when to start, a cue when to end, and a sentence frame provided. It doesn't always have to be a written frame. Frames that are written are very helpful. Okay, don't get me wrong, but I don't always have time to prep those. I don't always have time on the moment, like in the moment when I want you to be talking, I don't want to have to write it out. So I'm going to give the verbal prompt over and over again, right? But a lot of times turn and talk doesn't work because it's the same scenario as raising hands. They're just bulldozers. There's kids that are going to dominate the conversation. No one has to hold them accountable. And the other kid gets away with never saying a single word the whole time. So we still are going to norm it. But those two things are going to help you as you go through that lesson. Look for all the places that there's opportunity for math conversation. Guaranteed you're talking too much and you've turned into Charlie Brown's teacher at this point of the year. Want, want. Okay, I'm going to pose a question. I'm putting it all back on you. Choral response. Oh, I'm hearing right and wrong answers. Discuss this a little bit more. Is it this or this? Turn and talk. Okay, who can share out? Now I call on someone. Roberto, I don't know you, no hands. No hands. You already turned and talked. Why do I need your hands up? Okay, I've just been listening in. Okay, so there's no hands. I'm just gonna, like, Roberto, I just heard you talk to Sarah about this. What were you sharing? Now, I might rehearse with them if I think there's anxiety there or a risk-taking issue and let them know, hey, in a minute, I'm going to call on you. Be ready. But otherwise, the rest of the class doesn't need to know that because I need them all to think at any point, I'm going to ask you to share what you just talked about with your neighbor. I'm not asking for it to be right. I'm just asking for you to share. But when they do share and it's wrong, your response is so important. If you immediately turn it down or off, they've learned not to want to share their ideas and they become panicked, you're going to call them in the future. Okay, that causes math anxiety. But when whatever they say, you're like, oh, that's really interesting. Let's think some more about that. Okay, so if I draw that over here, notice I'm deflecting. I'm not putting the shame back on them. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying, oh, we need to talk more about this. Okay, friends, turn and talk to your neighbor again. Why did you think Ricardo might think that? How could someone think that that's true? I'm going to buy him some time, redirect to a turn and talk so I can go in and have a conversation and figure out where he's at, get to clarifying, get him to the right place, bring everyone back, call on him again, he wins. Okay, so this is a good time for that. They're tired of hearing from you. They're tired of the same thing you've been doing all year. If you're just teaching from the workbook under the document camera every single day, page by page, problem by problem, math class sucks for them. Okay, it's horrible. It's boring. It's not engaging. I don't really care. And then you see it on your assessments. They're not producing the results you want. They have to do more and be invested in more. So math talk's a great time right now. Okay, all of those things we're going to do. So remember that when you do math talk, it's not just to increase engagement. Math talk boosts memory. The more you say it, the more they retain it. Okay, it allows for language development. No, we did not plus those numbers. We added those numbers. Plus is for the symbol, adding is for the operation. I'm helping them use specific vocabulary. I might write vocabulary words. I'm going to turn and talk to your neighbor about how you knew how to add these 3-digit numbers. As you're talking, peanut butters, I need you to use the words, regrouping, ones, tens, hundreds. You get a point for every one of these words you can use as you describe it and writing or talking about it with your neighbor. Okay, so I'm going to do language development, so much language development. You might say, yeah, but what about Shannon, the kids that don't speak any English? And I'm like, well, why do you think they're there? You can't, that's not a free pass. So instead, I'm going to use it as repeating. Yes, use your native language. Let's talk in our native language as we're trying to understand something, but then I'm repeating it in English, or I'm saying in their partner talk, you're going to say it in English, he's going to repeat it in English. Okay, if you need to do some translating in between, please do. But if we don't ever rehearse the language, we will never acquire it. So it boosts language, it boosts memory, it boosts community building, right? It builds conversation skills, it builds social skills, and then of course it builds knowledge and depth. So some of us are so good at thinking, okay, today, my goal of today's lesson is, and then like insert it, I don't know, my goal of my lesson is to do equivalent fractions. Okay, well, and then you tell me all the different strategies kids are going to use, and they're going to know how to use a multiplication chart, and they're going to know how to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same thing. And they're going to like list off skills. And they're like, yeah, but what do they have to like say about it? That's what we're missing. So remember, they have to build it. So that means they have to conceptually understand it. What does it mean that 2/4 is equivalent to 1/2? Build it with a model, prove it, draw it. Can you connect your model to a drawing? Can you draw bar models, a number line, something that proves it takes up the same amount of space? Write it. Okay, you just split your halves into fourths. You didn't change the size of the whole. That means you are going to multiply your numerator and your denominator by 2. I get the same result. I connect it to the numeric representation, what I did with the model, the drawing, and now the numeric, how I write it. Okay, the writing is always the abstract, and then I talk about it, defend it, prove it, explain it. That's the piece we bring back. So for every concept you're teaching, can kids do all of those? Now I want you to, so yes, they know how to do the algorithm. They know how to multiply the top and the bottom by the same thing, the numerator, denominator. Okay, but why? Why does that work? Prove it. How does that work? Prove that this works using this model. And I want you to use these words in your language. I want you to be able to explain it step by step. I want you to tell me how the equivalent means the same amount of area, the same space, okay, whatever it is. So just a reminder, this is not the time to give up on math talk. This is the time to beef it up, to bring it back, and to get kids re-engaged and re-inspired to have conversations. Mix up your partners, mix up your groups, probably weekly, because we get tired of talking to the same people all the time. Do stand-in talks. I'm going to stand up, walk 10 steps, find a new partner, have this conversation. Stand, discuss, we'll call on someone, we add on, we sit down, we have a choral response, we have another choral response, I turn it into an open question, stand up, walk 10 more steps. Okay, I'm constantly having you move and engage, but you're constantly going back and forth with me. You're never just sitting there just watching me drone on forever and ever, and I never have to take ownership. All right, those are your tips. I want to know which one stands out to you. Which one do you love? Okay. So what are you going to try? Which one are you like, oh, I forgot about that strategy? Which one are you going to bring on back? Because I want you to bring it back. Okay. And then I want you to post it below. I want to hear your objections. I want to hear your successes. We're not done. We can make this work. Right. All right, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye for now.